Hey guys, so I took a drive today just to get out of the house and came out to a cemetery for about 14 years, kind of growing up and everything. I was at the same funeral home, and so a lot of people in this cemetery I have laid here. So there's a lot of memories, a lot of families that I was with through their times here, and a lot of firsts that I experienced here. And so I'm driving through and I just came upon this headstone, and Ryan, I speak about him often. He was an identical twin, and years after the funeral I saw his twin brother come into the funeral home, and it's always an interesting experience working with twins because you've worked so closely on a deceased and then seeing the twin brother. Ryan's death certificate was the first death certificate I ever signed as a licensed director back in 2002. So I have a lot of very special memories about Ryan and his family. He died in a car accident, following a car accident, and was just a tragic loss. I remember his family so vividly. You know, there's a lot of memories we have as funeral directors, a lot of firsts, a lot of big moments, a lot of funerals that will stick with me. I have Ryan's pamphlet from his folder, from his funeral. I have one of those folders in kind of my keepsakes because he is one of those people that will forever be part of my journey as a funeral director. So I just needed to stop here for a minute and kind of pay my respects to him and share this moment a little with you guys. Hey guys, so we are back here at the cemetery that I buried a majority of the people that I was burying at the time at for many years, in one smaller town, I guess mid-sized town. And I've talked about this grave space several times in videos. So this Forever in Our Hearts stone is a one grave lot. It was used for a program that was started by my mom, and you guys know my mom if you watched the video with me and my mom. Back in the 90s, and she had found out through all of her work as an aftercare coordinator and, you know, working with families that fetal or stillborn deaths at the hospitals, as it happened at many hospitals, went to the incinerator with all the hospital waste. And it still does happen at some hospitals, especially, you know, the early gestations. The families may not want them and want the babies back. And so she started this program here. It was a free program called Tender Beginnings. And I'm sure other funeral homes maybe have programs kind of like this. And so for no costs, families had this option for their baby to be buried out here at the grave space. So the babies from the hospital, we would get a call that it was a Tender Beginnings call, and we would pick up the babies, you know, sometimes only this little big, or even in a little container floating in some fluid from the hospital. The baby was inside that fluid floating, and we would bring that baby out, up to full-term babies that had died in the uterus, you know, in utero. And so we would bring them out here, take off all blankets, all markings, all tags around the leg, everything, and bury them right into the ground, and they generate very quickly back to the soil. So what I would do coming out here with the babies is rotate around the grave space, and we would just keep rotating around as we dug the graves, because by the time we got back to a space, the baby from before would have generated back into the ground. There's probably well over 200 babies buried here. Some were cremated remains that we buried the cremated remains after the family gave permission and had us cremate the baby. But this was just a space that parents could come and they could grieve for their child at no cost to them, just have a communal space. They couldn't leave a lot here. You can see some people did leave a few things, but if 200 people left stuff here, can you imagine how much stuff would be out here? But it just gave them a place to go to for that child that they had lost, and that baby could have a grave space and there wouldn't be cost to it. It got to the point though where I had to bury a full term. You know, I'm taking an 8-pound baby and placing it in a hole that I had dug, and got really too heavy of a burden. And so we made a cutoff age for gestation of babies, because babies of a certain size, we said they need their own grave space. We need to either cremate them or bury them on somebody, like we need a better option for them. So this was we turned it into for a little bit smaller children, lower gestation number, or weeks of gestation, I guess you would say. But this was one program we started to try and help families who didn't have another option, that they could have a space they could go to visit their child, to mourn for their child, to grieve for their child. So taking you back to some things from my earlier days of being a funeral director. Hey, still out here at the cemetery for this new video. Want to introduce you to somebody who you may all be familiar with. So Kari, me and the other Kari, did a video about the loss of her baby. And so I just happened to drive by and I was like, oh, I'm gonna stop and just bring you guys here to see baby Kylie for a moment. So just as memorable as this day, I think, was for Kari, it was such a huge pivotal moment in my career. I know we've talked about it in the video, but these are special moments that I will forever remember. And I think it's some from the beginning of your career. You know, when things are your first, they touch you a little bit more deeply and kind of seat in your heart, maybe a little bit more than others. But just standing here looking at some other family names that were quite monumental in the beginning of my career, buried right here near Kylie. So, you know, special memory lane right now for me, as I know these graves are very important, where people laid their loved ones to rest here. And so I don't go to the cemetery much to visit people. It's never really been my thing, but being here, I have a lot of memories of when I brought these people that are buried here. So you're remembered as families that are cared for, and your loved ones are remembered by funeral directors. You may think it's just another day, but families are remembered, and these places are special to us because of who we've cared for.